Hello everyone. Welcome to Principles of ATATURK and History of Turkish Revolution course. In this program, we'll talk about the Revolution of 1908, the 31st of March incident, and the Balkan Wars. Let's begin with the Revolution of 1908. The restoration of the constitutional regime was a result of the efforts of the Committee of Union and Progress. We need to mention two developments here which took place before the revolution. One of them was the merger of the Committee of Union and Progress and the Ottoman Freedom Society. Ottoman Freedom Society had a wide network in Macedonia, and among their members were bureaucrats and young officers in the Second and Third Armies. So, this merger strengthened the cause of the committee. The second development was the convention of the Second Young Turk Congress in Paris, which declared that the Sultan should be deposed and the constitutional regime replaced the existing system. The uprisings for the revolution started in Macedonia and got support through demonstrations in Thrace. Having seen that the Second and Third Armies could march on Istanbul, Abdülhamit II gave in and proclaimed the reinstatement of the constitution by an imperial decree. The revolution of 1908 promised liberty, equality, fraternity, and justice to all Ottoman citizens. What revolutionaries wanted were a parliamentary democracy, responsible government, meritocratic bureaucracy, and political parties instead of the traditional institutions. They promoted Ottomanism to unite the Ottoman people. With the reinstatement of the constitution, censorship was lifted, political prisoners and exiles began to return to Istanbul, bans were removed on political demonstrations, economic boycotts, strikes, and feminist gatherings. After the revolution, the Sultan continued to rule. However, the committee interfered in politics when it considered necessary. Elections were held in November and December of 1908. During the elections, the Committee of Union and Progress competed against the Party of Ottoman Liberals, which was a newly founded party. By securing the votes of the ethno-religious communities, namely the Greeks, Armenians, and Jews, the committee had a clear victory in the elections. After the elections, the Committee of Union and Progress continued its indirect rule. This was one of the reasons why the Ottoman liberals opposed the committee. Lower ulema and heads of dervish orders also opposed the committee because of the secular characteristics of the new regime and the Western style of life it adopted. While protesting the annexation of Bosnia-Herzegovina by Austria, the opponents demanded the abolition of the constitution, the restoration of Sharia, the closing of drinking houses, prohibition of photography, and restriction of women participation in social life. As the opposition grew bigger, the religious fundamentalists founded an organization called Mohammedan Union and targeted the secularist policies of the committee. They tried to appeal bureaucrats and army officers as well as conservatives. This anti-unionist movement turned into a rebellion on the 31st of March in solar calendar. Together with theology students and ulema, the rebels demanded the dismissal of the Grand Vizier and the Ministers of War and Navy, replacement of some unionist officers and the President of Chamber of Deputies, banishment of a number of officers from Istanbul, restoration of Sharia, and an amnesty for the rebellious troops. As a result, the Grand Vizier resigned, the Sultan appointed a new Minister of War, and many committee members fled Istanbul. The Ottoman liberals tried to fill the political vacuum and assume power, but the Action Army, which was organized to suppress the rebellion, intervened, and the Sultan seemed to get his power back. However, the committee started to reorganize the Action Army, and through public demonstrations and telegrams sent to the palace and parliament, they demanded the dismissal of the cabinet and arrest of the leaders of the rebellion. When the Action Army surrounded the capital, the Senate and the Chamber of Deputies assembled in Yeşilköy. They enacted a resolution approving the army's entry into the capital, restoration of order and punishment of the rebels. The army entered the capital and it suppressed the rebellion. Under the martial law it declared, the rebels were executed, the Liberal Union Party, some newspapers, and political associations were closed down. Abdülhamit II was deposed and replaced by Mehmet Reşat. To recap, we can say that the reasons of the 31st of March incident were the discontent of different groups, such as those who had lost their jobs because of the new regime, the friction between the officers in the army, the secularization of the social life which threatened the lower ulema, and the discontent of the opposition party. After the suppression of the 31st of March insurrection, the army had the power. The commander of the Action Army, Mahmut Şevket Pasha, became the dominant force. The committee was his junior partner, but they were free to make legislative changes. In this regard, the amendments to the Constitution of 1876 ended the Sultan's absolute power and rights. With the amendments, the parliament strengthened because it became the sole body to legislate and to negotiate and sign treaties. Within a few months after the amendments, the Chamber of Deputies enacted laws on public meetings, associations, brigandage, strikes, press and publications, and compulsory military service of non-Muslims. Special military units were formed to stop and disarm the Greek, Bulgarian, and Armenian brigands. All male Ottoman subjects were required to do military service. All these legislative measures caused new opposition to the Committee of Union and Progress. The first type of opposition was the establishment of new political parties by the liberals. The dissident unionists also founded two parties because they were disturbed by the committee's policies. Another type of opposition was that of disaffected non-Muslims and non-Turkish Muslim communities. They desired a decentralized government and a degree of self-rule. The strong opposition against the committee showed itself in Albania first. The resistance against the taxation, recruitment, and centralization ended with the independence of Albania in 1912. Albanians were the first Muslim community that seceded from the Ottoman Empire. Another development was the foundation of the Party of Freedom and Accord, which brought together all the opposing groups and parties. In a short time, this party won a victory in a by-election in the capital. Having seen the seriousness of the opposition, the Committee of Union and Progress channeled their efforts into conciliating the Albanians and the domestic rivals. However, they failed in their attempts. What's more, Italy is declaring war on the Ottomans in Tripoli, occupying the Dodecanese Islands on the Aegean, and blocking the Dardanelles worsened the political situation. As a result, the Unionists decided to dissolve the assembly and hold general elections in early 1912. The elections were held between February and April under the threats of the committee, wanting to guarantee its majority. The committee won a victory in these elections too, but their power didn't last long. The government was forced to resign by a group of officers. The political struggle for power came to a halt with the breakout of the Balkan War. When the Balkan War broke out, the Ottoman state was at war with Italy in Tripoli. Taking advantage of this, Serbia, Montenegro, Bulgaria, and Greece had signed agreements with one another to conquer the European domains of the Ottoman Empire. Although the Ottomans had promised reforms in Macedonia, the Balkan allies declared war on the Ottomans. This situation forced the Ottomans to make an agreement and leave Tripolitania and Dodecanese Islands to Italy. The Ottoman army was defeated at the Balkan War, losing all European territories. Edirne was besieged by Bulgarian forces. With the European powers' desire to discuss the future of the Balkans, an armistice was negotiated and two parallel conferences convened in London. The conference between the Ottomans and the Balkan delegates broke down. The Conference of the Great Powers that convened to discuss the settlement in the Balkans warned the Ottoman state to reach a peace agreement ceding Edirne to Bulgaria. Edirne was a largely Muslim town, and it had vital importance for the defense of Istanbul. The possibility of leaving Edirne to Bulgaria gave an opportunity for the Committee of Union and Progress to act for patriotic reasons. A group of unionist officers, led by Enver, attacked the cabinet during a meeting and killed the Minister of War. They took the cabinet members prisoner and forced the Grand Vizier to resign. This event is known as Baba Ali coup. Edirne's fall after a 6-month siege forced the committee to pursue peace. As a result, the Treaty of London was signed and Edirne was lost to Bulgaria. However, later, when a conflict between the Balkan allies emerged, the Ottomans took advantage of this and recaptured Edirne. Peace treaties were signed with Bulgaria, Serbia, and Greece. After the end of the Balkan War, the parliament was reopened, and with the elections, the Committee of Union and Progress became the sole power with no domestic political challenge. How about the consequences of the Balkan Wars? Well, the Ottoman Empire was reduced to an Asiatic state from a transcontinental empire. The loss of Rumelia also meant the loss of the richest region of the empire. As a result of migration from the lost territories into Anatolia, the number of Muslims and Turks increased. It became clear that non-Muslims and even non-Turkish Muslims were discontent with the imposed Ottoman identity. So the idea of Ottomanism shattered, which paved the way for Turkish nationalism. Turkish nationalism became the ideological policy of the Committee of Union and Progress. Anatolia began to be closely identified as Turkish homeland. The Turks, who had migrated from Tsarist Russia to Anatolia, also contributed to the development of Turkish nationalism. Another consequence of the Balkan Wars was about foreign policy. Considering that the empire needed a great power protection, the Committee of Union and Progress sought an alliance with Britain first, and then with France, Austria-Hungary, Russia, and Germany. All of them refused the Ottomans, but when the Crown Prince of Austria-Hungary was assassinated by a Serbian nationalist, the Ottoman state found itself at war again as an ally of Germany. So, this is the end of our program for Chapter 5. In this video, we've discussed the Revolution of 1908 and its aftermath. Join us for the next program. Goodbye.